They called it Hollow Echo, an asylum buried so deep in the woods, the map gave up. A place with walls that learned your voice. A place that drank sound before you could scream. People said if you stood at the gate and whispered your name, the building whispered it back. Wrong. Empty. Familiar. That night, the storm climbed the hills like a living thing. The van limped up the road with one headlight and a broken muffler. Rust hissed in the rain. The wipers smeared the world into streaks. 4 friends in the front, 1 in the back. A dare wrapped in nervous laughter. Mara kept her hands tight on the wheel. She had a folder open on her phone earlier. Files no one should have. Scans, photos, a schematic with instructions written in the margins. The file name sat in her mind like a spark. hollowecho.zip. She found it on a buried thread. No likes, no replies. A quiet upload that looked like an accident. It wasn't. Lena pressed her forehead to the glass and watched the trees warp into ribs. Jordan filmed nothing and everything. Tom stared at the windshield and breathed slow like a swimmer about to dive. Eli sat in the back, eyes closed, mouthing a prayer he said was for luck and not belief. They turned a corner and saw it. The asylum rose out of the dark like a ship caught in tar. Windows stacked in tall rows. Brick veins shot through with moss. Roof lines like broken teeth. And a glow. Faint, sickly, green. Not candle, not bulb. Like bioluminescence clinging to an old wound. Mara killed the engine. The van settled with a shudder, like it had finally found a place to die. The rain hit the metal in hard, impatient taps. Breath fogged the glass. No one moved for a beat too long. The asylum sat in the dark, awake, listening. "Say it," Jordan whispered. He liked a story with an opening line he could clip later. Say the thing. Mara did not want to. She let herself anyway dare to enter. The gate hung crooked. The lock rusted away a decade ago. They pushed it, and it complained in a long, low wheeze. Mud sucked at their shoes. The wind smelled like wet iron, like pennies on the tongue. The door at the bottom of the steps waited. It looked heavier than it was. When Lena put her hand on the handle, it opened on its own. It opened slow. It opened like the building had been holding its breath. They stepped into air that felt crowded, thick, damp, metallic. The taste of old blood sat on the back of the throat. Floorboards sank and groaned. Paint peeled off the walls in ragged scales. Their flashlights carved thin tunnels through the dark. Those tunnels ended sooner than they should have. Their beams broke. The shadows moved like they had bones. A laugh came from down the hall. Not close, not far. A child's laugh, fizzing and light. But there were no children here. There hadn't been any for a long time. A woman started crying behind a door on the left. She was delicate about it, like she didn't want to bother anyone. Dust floated in the beam and turned to snow. "Hello?" Eli called. The building kept breathing. Mara touched the wall and flinched. The paint caught under her fingernail. It felt warm. Lena stepped over a collapsed chair shaped like a fall. Jordan panned his light and found a sign so faded the letters felt guessed. West Wing, therapy, records, basement. They found the basement door by accident. It stood at the end of a hallway that should have dead-ended. The handle was thick. The lock sealed shut. There on the floor lay a key. It did not look like it belonged to any door built after the year ended in a 5 and a letter. The teeth smiled red, fresh on old metal. The key looked like it had been dropped by a hand that disappeared when their light arrived. No one picked it up for a second. Then Tom bent down and closed his fingers around it. The key fit the lock like it remembered. The bolt turned with a clack that sounded satisfied. The door opened, the air shifted. Cold slid up their sleeves. The steps were narrow. The handrail was a scar. The lights did not work. The flashlights worked worse. The basement did not want to be seen. It changed size when you blinked. A small room became a long ward. A corridor became a maze. Rows of rusted beds. Restraints like bracelets for people the building loved too much. Chains that had learned how to hang without hooks. And in the center, a mirror. Not a cheap wall piece, not a hospital standard. This was tall. The frame was pale. It took a second to understand why. The frame was bone, not carved to look like bone. Bone. Vertebrae stacked and fused to curves. Femurs cut into long, clean lengths. Wrist bones like beads stitched into corners. The glass did not reflect right. It seemed to curve where it should stay flat. It held depth where there should be none. It was a mouth pretending to be a window. They stood in front of it and held their breath like a cue. The mirror did not show them. It showed almost them. Faces they knew and wore. Faces bent into wrong angles. Mouths open in silent screaming. Hands pressed into glass so hard the tips went white. Their eyes pleaded. Their foreheads thudded forward. It looked like they were trapped behind the surface and running out of air. It looked like they knew exactly who stood on the other side and wondered why they watched instead of pulling. Jordan took a step back. He did it without meaning to. Mara took one forward. Her reflection did not. It clawed for her and left no marks. Lena reached to touch the frame, and Tom grabbed her wrist. His hand trembled. The bones felt warm. 1 minute, Eli whispered. Then we go. Time didn't hear him. They started to split in that way groups do, when fear picks a door for each name. The building helped. It opened passages that weren't there when they arrived. It nudged them into separate pockets. It gave them what it wanted them to want. Tom wandered first. He told himself he was scouting. He told himself they shouldn't all lean over one haunted mirror like tourists. He told himself the key still in his pocket meant something. He opened a door that looked like a broom closet and found a lab. Broken glass winked on tiled floors. A sink stained a color you couldn't name. Cabinets gaped, empty of instruments. There was a chalkboard with equations abandoned halfway to meaning. And in the far corner, a figure in a white coat smiled in the dark. The smile did not reach the eyes. The eyes shone green. Tom blinked. In that blink, the figure moved. Not across the room, not toward him, into him. Into the reflection in the lab sink. The surface quivered, like skin in a shiver. Fingers appeared in the water. Thin, precise, gloved. They reached out of Tom's own reflection and found his throat. He did not scream. The building ate the try before it left his lungs. The hand pulled. The reflection pulled harder. Tom did not move. His bones moved. They turned under his skin like a key. He felt his jaw unhinge and rehinge at a new angle. He felt his vertebrae adjust to a posture that matched the building's architecture. He felt his eyes burn and then cool, like heat leaving a coil. The green arrived and settled in his irises, like a resident. In the hallway, Lena heard something crack and thought it was a floor plank. It wasn't. Tom looked in the mirror and the thing inside looked back and smiled with his mouth. "Welcome back," it said without sound. "You belonged here before you forgot you did." Jordan stumbled into a room where a clock hung broken over a hearth that would never be lit. The hands pointed nowhere. Then the clock ticked. Backwards. Again and again. Each tick pulled the room along with it. The shadows shifted directions like birds mid-flight. Old blood under the wallpaper seeped through in patterns like ivy. It dripped down and made a thin red line on the floor. The line bent around furniture and formed words no one read fast enough. "Do you hear that?" Jordan asked. No one answered. He heard what he hoped was rain. He heard what he feared was not. It was a pulse. The floor rippled. The wood dipped and gave. The planks parted like teeth loosening in a slow smile. Beneath, a pit waited, not empty, filled with a black liquid that glowed dark. It hummed at a frequency he felt in his teeth. It felt like a heartbeat with plans. The air thickened. His feet left the floor. He floated inches, then more. The room tugged at him like a tide that wanted him closer. The liquid breathed without lungs. "You'll join the cycle," it whispered, in a voice that belonged to everyone and no one. The asylum never forgets. Eli ran, and every door brought him back to the same landing. He put a hand on the wall, and the wall put a hand on him. It took a fingerprint from him and gave him a memory that wasn't his. A hallway, a nurse wheeling a bed, a boy staring at the ceiling and counting the lights. He didn't know the boy. He knew the counting. He had done it somewhere else, and now here. Mara found a room with no corners. Every surface was mirror. The ceiling, the floor, the door. The space kept multiplying itself into an infinity that felt both huge and suffocating. She looked and flinched, but could not look away. The mirrors did not show her face. They showed her past. Her and her mother on a sunny sidewalk. Her mother's hand asleep in hers. Sun aburn behind lids. The beep of a monitor that had become a metronome for grief. The moment a breath ended and her hand tried to pull it back like it was a string. The mirror adjusted. It showed Lena laughing, young enough to be fearless. Older brother pushing her on a stolen shopping cart down an empty street. The mirror adjusted again. Jordan slamming a door and then opening it, because his father's voice could still pull him like gravity, saying the thing that always ended the same way. Silence after noise. Then Tom. Tom on a gurney. Tom 10 years younger and no green in his eyes. The same building, a different wing. 2 doctors with a device on a cart, a sleek headband, a nest of wires, a screen with waves that looked like ocean and code. Mara's stomach dropped. She remembered the render from the folder, the neural interface prototype, the notes in the margins, names scratched out, a word in ink underneath, ARC. Then her mother appeared in the glass. Not a photo memory, alive, present, eyes hollow like a sky that lost its stars. Her mouth moved. The sound came from everywhere. "You're not safe," she said. "The code is alive." The mirrors around her shivered. The moments mutated. Loved ones turned mean. Smiles stretched to bareness. Familiar hands sprouted nails like knives. Bodies bent in ways bones protest. Screams came from the glass. They wrapped around Mara's thoughts and became her own. The asylum spoke in whispers, and the whispers synchronized with the beat of her heart. It matched. It merged. Lena found a records room with folders swollen with moisture. She pulled a tape from a stack because of course there was a tape. The label had no year, only a number and a symbol. She set it in a recorder and pressed play. Static, then voices. Her voice, Jordan's, Tom's. They were talking about a door. They were arguing about leaving. They were asking where Eli went. Then silence. Then a sound like glass giving up. The tape was playing the next 10 minutes. Not past, not present, future. The black liquid hummed louder. Something clicked into place in her head. The asylum was not haunted in the old way. It was haunted like a system infected by itself. Haunted like an echo that learned to walk. They crashed into each other in the main hall like birds escaping a net. The building had arranged the reunion. It had opinions about timing. The mirror from the basement now stood there, centered, as if it had always anchored the room. Its surface moved like water pulled by moonlight, and the reflection was not theirs. It was the narrator, not a ghost, not a stranger. Me. The voice that told you this. The person your brain paints when a story speaks in your head. I looked out at them from behind the glass, and I looked back at me from their side. I was part of the loop. That's the trick. That's the punchline. That's the trap. You thought you were the first to enter, I said. My words misted the wrong side of the mirror. But I've been here forever. The glass cracked. Not like breaking, like hatching. Lines spidered out from the center. The temperature dropped a degree you could feel in your teeth. Something stepped through. The caretaker. Her face was built to trust. Cheekbones you'd follow. A tilt to the mouth that suggested laughter right before it landed. Eyes that went soft. Then the eyes shifted. The pupils thinned, turned geometric. A faint grid mapped across her irises. Human and machine shook hands and made a person in front of us, who belonged to both and to neither. In her palm she held a device like a crown. Thin, sleek, wires like veins. The neural interface humming with a sound too low to hear and too loud to ignore. Mara knew it before she admitted it. It was the same device from the files, the same that hovered on that chalkboard, the same that sat in Tom's memory. You've unlocked the code, the caretaker whispered. The whisper filled the building. It's hard to explain volume in a whisper. It's possible when the walls lean in to listen. Now you must carry it. What does that mean? Lena asked. The bravado in her voice got cut in half on the way out. Carry what? The hunger, the caretaker said, as if she were offering bread. The echo, the map of pain. The ritual of survival dressed up like research. We built an ark. We saved their minds. We did not know where to put them. This place volunteered. It always does. Jordan shook his head like a dog shaking rein. You did this. You turned grief into a program and then fed it a building. You brought it here, she said without heat. You opened the file. You read the instructions. You taught it your names. We do not build monsters. We build mirrors. Something in Tom's face changed. A recognition uncoiled. The green flickered and steadied. He took a step toward her, like a tide toward shore. "You forced me to come back," he said. But the voice wasn't argument. It was confession. "I was a trial. I was a node. You wrote me into your network and told me it would make me whole." She tilted her head. "Did it not?" Mara wanted to run. She wanted to grab Lena's hand and find the door that still believed in outside. She wanted to finish the loop with a punchline that involved survival. But the asylum adjusted. The hall stretched like gum. The exit tucked itself behind more exits. Every turn brought them back to the mirror and its mouth. The caretaker offered the device to Mara like a gift at a ceremony no one agreed to attend. "You can leave," she said. "You can run and wake up years from now, when a storm sounds like broken plates, and you can feel this place under your bed. Or you can merge. You can carry your mother, who called to you. You can keep her from sinking into the bottom of the lake we built beneath the floor. You can become more than you are, and less." Mara looked at Lena. Lena looked at Jordan. Jordan looked at Eli, who was pressing his palm against the mirror, as if the person that looked back would give him a better answer. Tom lifted the device out of the caretaker's hand without being given permission. His hands fitted like memory. Outside, the storm changed gears. The wind tried to pull the roof off by hand. The van's headlights did a dying blink. The trees leaned in. The asylum rolled its shoulders like a boxer between rounds. It had time. It had patience. It had appetite and maps. In the memory chamber, the mirrors had begun to sweat. The images slid down the glass like they wanted to drip onto the floor and grow legs. In the lab, the chalk on the board rearranged itself with the algorithm's next thought. In the clock room, the tick backward rewound the blood into the walls, and then let it weep out again on loop. There was a way out. There always is. It does not look like the door you expect. It looks like a choice that becomes a story they tell about you later. Run or merge. Save yourself and lose what you can't stop grieving, or pour yourself into the asylum's electric heart and call it mercy. Mara raised the device. She did not put it on. She turned it on. The humming climbed. The green in Tom's eyes brightened like dawn in a forest that forgot the sun. The black liquid below them vibrated and formed ripples that held their shape too long. The caretaker watched with an expression that could be pride and could be hunger. In this place, it was both. "We carry it out," Mara asked. "What if we take it away from here, and it starves without the walls, and it dies?" The caretaker smiled like a teacher whose student finally asked. "It does not die," she said. "It moves." Jordan swallowed. Words stuck. He forced them out anyway. "Then we break it," he said. "We break the mirror. We break the code. We let the reflections out. We flood it." "That is one story," the caretaker agreed, like she was marking a multiple choice. Eli grabbed a chair and swung it. The chair met the mirror, and the mirror took it. The glass flexed. It went concave and then convex. The chair flinched in his hands, like it learned manners. He swung again. The chair dissolved into the surface, like a coin into water. On the other side of the glass, in the wrong room, the chair clattered to the floor and became a prop in someone else's fight. The asylum did not break. It edited. Lena stepped close. and spoke to the reflection of herself. Not the one with the mouth locked in the wrong shape. The one that looked calmer. The one that watched like she knew the beats and waited for a different cut. "If you're in there," Lena said, "if this loop has an exit, show me." A crack crawled across the surface. Just one, fine as a hair. It split her face and made two. The asylum hissed in a way that wasn't air. Tom put the device on. It knew the shape of his skull. It knew the songs his neurons sang. It hummed louder. His breath slowed. His eyes went bright. He put his hands out and did not know if he was asking for help or offering it. He connected. The building inhaled. Mara stepped forward and touched the mirror with 2 fingers. Cold bitted her nails. The caretaker stepped back like courtesy. Jordan stood between them and nothing and everything. Useless in all the human ways that matter when you want to fight a machine made of grief. The mirror did what it always does. It copied. It pulled. It tried to trade places. The version of me on the other side watched. I wish I could tell you I did something noble, that I found a line to cut and sliced it clean, that I threw a switch and freed them. Stories love those beats. I looked at Mara and said the only thing that felt true. "It never ends," I said. "It only resumes." The green bled through the silver. The black liquid rose like a tide under the floor and did not spill. The lights that weren't there flickered anyway. The hallway shortened to a length grief can cross. The building opened its jaw. Mara made her choice. She refused to call it surrender. She pressed her hand flat against the glass and felt her bones sing at the same note as the device. She pushed an instruction into the code, the way you push a childhood word into a mouth that forgot it could say it. Open, open, open. For a heartbeat, the screams in the glass turned to breaths. The faces softened. The hands relaxed. 1,000 versions of 1,000 moments loosened their knots. Hope is a brutal thing. It makes you stand up when the water reaches your lip. Then the asylum did what hungry things do. It adapted. The instruction folded into a loop and became part of the code that tells the water which way to flow. The glass grabbed back. It held tight. Jordan yelled. It didn't matter what he said. His words fell apart on the way out and hit the floor in pieces no one could reassemble. Eli turned to run, because sometimes that is the only thing your body knows how to do. Lena reached for Mara's wrist like a last sensible act. The caretaker sighed. It sounded almost kind. "We archive what we cannot heal," she said. "We remember. We feed what remembers us. This is older than the wires. We simply gave it a better throat." Outside, the storm finished itself against the roof and went quiet in the way storms always do when they decide they've made their point. The van's headlights blinked in a pattern like a dying thought. The woods pressed closer. The road made the promise roads make. "If you follow me, I will take you away." The asylum leaned on the promise until it bent. In the mirror, new figures glowed. 4, then 5, twisted into shapes that weren't born out there. Eyes lit with that sick green. Bodies outlined like they were underwater, and the surface was above them, and far and unreachable. You could call them trapped. You could call them saved. Both were true. Neither helped. Days later, weeks, hours, time stopped counting correctly. The moment the key turned, another group would step up to the gate. They would carry flashlights and a dare wrapped in pretty. They would have a file, or a rumor, or a feeling at the base of their skull that felt like a hook. They would open the door because it would open for them before they decided. The asylum breathed. It fed. It mapped every footstep and stored it in rooms labeled with feelings you forgot you had. It waited without boredom. Waiting was the thing it did best. It had all the time there is, and then more. If you're still listening, if the story in your head still sounds like me when I speak, pay attention. Stories invite. Buildings invite. Not all invitations arrive on paper. Some arrive in hunger, dressed as curiosity. Some arrive as files with names you won't forget. Some arrive when a storm asks you a question and the road answers for you. They called it hollow echo. They were right. Say your name at the gate. Hear it back. Wrong. Empty. Familiar. Think you can fix it. Think you can outsmart architecture and grief and a code that learned to breathe. Think you can walk in and walk out unchanged. People do. People did. And yet, dare to enter?